It was interesting. It was an experience. So I've had my doubts over time whether people are using things just for political gain and to gain traction. I do actually believe that she is quite genuine. I think her meeting the victims and hearing their stories has had a big impact on how she sees this. I do think she is genuine about that, and I do think that she's doing it for the right reasons. Well, I'm hoping she is anyway.
What message would you like to give politicians as they wait for the Louise Casey review to come back?
I would like to urge them all to start seeing us as actual people instead of a political decision. Like, we are real life people, and it shouldn't be based on what politics you believe in, what party you belong to. It should be based on what's right. And the fact is, I'm one of thousands. There's so many more like me, and I'm lucky I've managed to rebuild my life. The majority of these victims haven't.
Kemi Badenoch, how was your meeting with Fiona?
It was quite a phenomenal meeting, really. Fiona is someone who is quite extraordinary, waiving her anonymity so that people could hear just the full extent of the trauma which she experienced, and failure after failure by the police, social services, local authorities. It's, almost the perfect example of everything that went wrong with this grooming gang scandal embodied in one person's story.
Did she change your mind on anything in your discussion, and did she teach you new things about this scenario?
Yes, she did. She didn't change my mind, but she reminded me a lot of the reasons why I do this. This issue touches on 2 points for me. One, women's rights, violence against women. Physically, we are more vulnerable, and a lot of people pretend that that's not the case. And we need to remind everyone where that vulnerability lies. A lot of people who make these decisions are wealthy people who live in very nice areas where they don't have problems, and they have what I call luxury beliefs, where they think that these things don't really happen. But actually they do happen, but the people who feel the consequences are people like Fiona. We've got to change that. We need politicians and decision makers who are in touch with the reality on the ground in this country. But it also touches on another issue I care about, which is integration. And that we cannot have societies where we've got lots of different racial and religious groups doing their own thing, protecting their members from being investigated for crimes, and people who will not expose wrongdoing because they think it's against a tribal instinct or a tribal requirement. That is not what we want in this country. We are a successful, integrated country. We have to continue to be that way. And that means demanding far more integration than the government or society has been asking for. And hearing her talk about how when her mother raised the alarm and was describing someone as an Asian male, the police were more concerned about her using that description than about what was happening to her daughter. We will fail on integration in this country if we don't have free speech, if we spend a lot of time worrying about who's offended rather than looking at the real crimes that are taking place.
And last month, the government were criticised for appearing to roll back on their promise of 5 local inquiries. They insist there will be at least 5. We don't know where those are going to be. Trevor Phillips said that that decision could have been made because they were nervous about losing the Muslim vote. Do you agree with Sir Trevor?
I think that he makes a very good point. I think that he is right, that Labour are playing politics with this issue. I think they are worried about some of their votes. I've seen it. There's a new sectarian vote that is growing in the UK that needs to be tackled. I think that's one thing. But the other thing is that they are not serious about this issue. When they talked about having those 5 local inquiries, it was a rushed answer when they felt a lot of political pressure. And when people stood back and waited, they watered that down. I asked Keir Starmer at PMQs, where were these local inquiries going to happen? He could not answer the question. And that's the sign of a party that's kicking something into the long grass.
We're in Bradford. Your Tory colleague, Robbie Moore, the MP for Keighley, he's been campaigning for a Rotherham-style inquiry into this town and the Bradford district for many years. Do you regret that not enough Conservatives were vocal about Robbie's campaign and the wider issue on grooming gangs for those years?
We could have been more vocal, but people like me, for example, knew that there was an inquiry already underway, the Alexis J inquiry, and we thought that would cover it and that everything would be done. And when we saw the outcome, we saw the recommendations, we knew that we needed to do more. That's why we set up the gangs task force that found about another 500 perpetrators. So we have been taking this issue as seriously as we could. There's always more that could be done. And I'm the party leader now. So I can't go into the past and do more then. What I can do is try and fix things right now. We're not the government anymore. So my job as leader of the opposition is to hold the government to account, hold their feet to the fire, and make sure that they can see that the public outcry is for a full national inquiry. What Fiona told me is that there are so many people who were trafficked from county to county all around the country that a local inquiry is not going to be able to help with those sorts of cases. You can't compel witnesses, you can't force people to testify under oath. So a local inquiry, while helpful, is not what's going to actually get to the root cause of this issue. And right now, as we're speaking, there still seem to be many children who are still being abused. That needs looking at.
When you hear about that criticism that you said is a good point, that Labour politicians and ministers could be prioritising political correctness and a Muslim vote over dealing with this issue. Have you spoken to members of the British Pakistani community about that? Have they raised concerns with you?
No, they have not raised concerns with me. But I am in a situation now where I want full transparency. It doesn't matter which community you come from. We just want to hear the truth. Let witnesses come forward, people who have disagreements or alternative evidence, let them come forward. But what we need to do is shine a spotlight on this issue, not bury it. And right now it feels like it's being buried.
Jess Phillips has a majority of under 800. She's a safeguarding minister. Her closest challenger is a pro-Palestinian independent, as it's being termed. Would you be comfortable telling her and accusing her of prioritising keeping a certain voter rather than dealing with this issue as thoroughly as you think it needs to be done?
I don't think Jess Phillips understands what her job is. This is someone who claimed to be a campaigner for women's rights, but when the time came, what she showed was a lack of bravery. She looks to me like someone who is scared. It's up to her to explain what her motivations are, but whenever I see her at the dispatch box, I see someone who is in over her head, who doesn't know how to solve the problem, and is actually terrified of doing anything about it.
When the full scale of this crisis is revealed and more information is coming out all the time, are you confident that this country can actually deal with it head on and come together after? You talk about integration. Are the facts of this crisis so stark and so scary, frankly, that it could have a major impact on dealing with community cohesion in Britain?
Of course we can deal with it. We are a strong country. We are a successful multiracial country. But I've always said that being multiracial doesn't mean we should be multicultural. We need to have a shared dominant culture that binds everyone together. Not all cultures are equal, and we don't need to pander to every single group's sort of desires and wishes. We need to talk about British values. We need to re-emphasize them. And I've told people again and again what they are. They're not universal values everywhere. Things like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, equality between sexes, for instance, not judging people based on the color of their skin, meritocracy, let the best person get the job that's out there. All of those things and more. That's what makes this country successful. So of course we can weather it. Of course we can deal with it. But we need to start focusing on it right now. And it also requires us to do a whole bunch of other things as well. We need to look at immigration. It is too high. I've been saying this now for a long time. We need to look at who's coming into this country. Why are they coming here? Our country is not a dormitory. It's not a hotel. It's our home. We need to look after it. People coming here to work, yes, that's all well and good, but we can't just look at individuals as if they're economic units. How are they integrating to our society? Are they net contributors? Or are they doing a job of bringing 4 other people who need looking after, in which case that's not good for the UK. So there is a whole piece of work that needs to be done around this to make sure that we continue to be a successful and well-integrated country.
In terms of who we're letting into the country, when we first spoke about this issue, you told me that many of the perpetrators were peasants. I think you were suggesting that they came from sort of tribal areas, rural areas of Pakistan, that they had different values to the majority of the country. Have we let too many so-called peasants into Britain?
Well, no, what I said was that they came from a peasant background that was actually quite cut off even from, mainstream Pakistan, very remote areas. I think it was Mirpur. Yes, Mirpur, in a mountain. That even there, They were not integrated. They were not well educated. They were living peasant lifestyles, which were actually alien to many of the people in that part of the world. But the point I was making there was just calling it Pakistani grooming gangs actually obscured what was really going on. That this is not just about just men or Asians. It's about people from specific communities that have very little cultural connection with the UK, and when they come here, have no interest in joining this society. They just want to continue whatever that cultural lifestyle was. And we have to break that. We don't want it. It does not belong here. And politicians need to take that seriously and not be scared about saying, we don't want people like this in our country. And if this is how you behave, we will get you out of here and you will never, ever come back.
Does that make you nervous that some Labour MPs and independent MPs in heavily Pakistani areas seem to be campaigning more for an airport in Mirpur than on the grooming gangs issue?
It's completely ridiculous. No one in this country should be campaigning for an airport in another country. There are many people who are elected who are more interested in what's happening abroad than in what's happening in this country. And that's why I always talk about citizenship. The citizenship isn't just about holding a passport. It's about caring about the place you're in, the people who are there, your neighbours, the people in your community, wanting their success, wanting the success of your country rather than somewhere thousands of miles away. And what worries me is that I see a lot of Labour MPs, not just the ones of Pakistani origin or with high Pakistani communities or Asian communities, but loads of Labour MPs who will not talk about the problems that are happening here today in Bradford or in Birmingham or wherever, but they're talking about what's happening in Gaza. Gaza this, Gaza that, as if that is the high priority of the people who voted them in. It's not. They are in the wrong job. They're not focused. And that is one of my missions, to make sure that we get these people out of our parliament and make sure that the British Parliament is focused on the national interest and the interests of British people.
Last question. On this issue of cousin marriage and concerns around communities not integrating, are you worried that we haven't sufficiently clamped down on that? Because many experts have said that cousin marriage generates a layer of kinship, a closer level of integration between a specific community on an insular level, and prevents people from branching out and integrating more broadly. Are you worried that the cousin marriage issue might be linked to the grooming gangs issue? And do you want more investigation there?
I'm not sure how linked it is to the grooming gangs issue, but it is a serious issue. And it goes beyond people becoming more insular. There are significant medical problems, which end up being a huge cost to the states, to communities as well, that needs looking at. And that is why one of my colleagues, Richard Holden, has been campaigning very strongly on this issue, wanting to ban cousin marriage. I support him, but Labour has refused to hear his argument or to look at the bill that he's put forward.
But would you want more investigation on a
Absolutely.
potential link between grooming gangs and cousin marriage?
If there was a potential link, but I want us to make sure that we're focused on the real issue. How do we stop the perpetrators who are probably out there now? How do we make sure the local authorities, social workers, police officers who failed people are brought to account to make sure that this never happens again? And yes, we can look at loads of other causal links, like cousin marriage.
Perhaps that's something for an inquiry.
It might be, but until we get a full national inquiry, none of these issues are going to be solved. A full national inquiry is the only thing that's going to get to the bottom of these issues and make sure the victims like Fiona get justice.
So that full national inquiry should include sort of academic questions as well, not just looking at policing failures, cover-ups, local council, but also looking at potential links on a socio-biological level, looking at concerns about marriage and communities as well?
Doesn't necessarily have to be inside this inquiry. I don't want a national inquiry that's going to take 20 years to report, and that is one of the risks. We need something that's going to work quickly and get to the bottom of what is happening now. We don't need a national inquiry to look at whether cousin marriage is a problem. That's something that can be done through academic routes anyway.
Well, why isn't it being done? One of the reasons why is because there's no, people will be interested in this concern, but
I think that there is research out there. This is one of the reasons why Richard Holden has put out that bill. I am not on top of how much work has been done academically, but nothing stops people from looking at this from via the academic route. It's something that universities and think tanks could do. I'd certainly be in support of that. But what I see right now is a Labour government that is failing to tackle this issue because it makes them uncomfortable, and they want to pretend it's about money, or it's about time, or it's about recommendations, which actually did not solve the problem and did not really look at the issue from previous inquiries that we had set up. And the more we talk about this, the most we can really do is keep ensuring that this issue does not leave people's minds. We need to keep ensuring that the victims know that they are being thought about, that they're being looked after, and that we are fighting for justice for them. That is my priority right now.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.